Eli Manning stays on his feet. It is caught by Tyree.
Welcome to Catch the Moment podcast. I am your host, David Tyree. Thank you for joining us for another episode. This is where you come to get the jewels, the lessons, the experiences that's going to get you to your next moment, cause you to thrive on your journey. Today, I'm with, you might have probably heard me say this, but I'm with a friend, a dynamic leader in the marketplace. And, when we talk about lessons, leadership, and ultimately mentorship, this is someone that we could all learn from. I want to welcome Carlos Lejnieks. Right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, you got it right. I mean, all these years. It took us like 30, 40 years to get it.
Listen, it's risky. It's still risky.
Right,
I was
right.
look, we're going to try this. Because I remember. Now, your brother.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we come from the best pedigree ever. Let's just, y'all going to hear this.
Montclair Pride.
Montclair, New Jersey. Okay? I mean, you're going to hear this week in and week out just because it's a special place.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
Again, Carlos, is people like yourself that are proving, right? And I feel like we were there at a special time too.
Yeah.
It's still an amazing community. But before I get into too much of our relationship, gotta ask you, and this is good because I'm not even sure if I heard this. Where were you when you saw the helmet catch? First time you ever saw it?
Yeah.
What were your thoughts? What was your reaction, or any significant story if you have one?
Oh my gosh. Well, the thoughts and reaction was immediate. First of all, I recognize that I know you talk about the most forgotten touchdown. I was my phone was blowing up, texting all friends. The Montclair community was rallying around your moments. Oh, there was no question. And then the helmet catch didn't hit me. That was such a iconic moment. I was like, oh my God, did he catch it? Did he have it?
Yeah.
And then when it was like verified on the replays and everything, I was like, at that moment, my man that we grew up with had one of the best of all time. And it was known. And I tell you, there were so many people that were texting. Montclair Pride, was living its finest moment at that point. The world was watching. I was at my home, and it wasn't a major party moment or anything like that, but it felt like a party because I was in Montclair, no less.
No doubt.
watching it. Yeah.
It's always cool because every time I talk to somebody, they always remember typically exactly where they were when they saw the catch. And I'm gonna kind of turn the tables, and we're gonna get to eventually, of course, get to some of the amazing work. I didn't realize how long you have actually been a part of the Big Brothers Big Sisters organization. Yeah. So you've really earned your right as CEO, and the impact that been a trailblazer in this mentorship space. But you also now sitting as a trustee, Brown University.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I can't even get Syracuse to call me back. You know what I'm saying? I gave them some love on the podcast. I can't even get them to call me back. No, I'm just messing with you.
That's funny.
No, man. So, but what would you say, it's still early, you're still, blazing a path, but what would you say is your defining moment up to this point?
First of all, it is a blessing to be in the work that I'm in. I get paid to do things that allow me to pay it forward in so many ways. I am a product of so many people who mentored me, who poured into me, who kind of gave things to me that they didn't have to. They were not blood related, but they showed up at the right time at the right place. And so for me in my day job, so the first comment, I've been there at Big Brothers Big Sisters for 15 years. Amazing. It's two things. It's an alignment. It's a blessing. It also means I'm getting old. You start measuring your life in decades. That's when you realize, okay.
All facts.
Yeah, now I'm thinking about retirement, what that looks like, all things I never thought of 20 years ago. But the work side, the Big Brothers Big Sisters side, has just been a constant reiteration of counting my blessings and being able to pay it forward. Growing up in Montclair, this town that people think they know about, and then there's another side of it, and beautiful big houses, and then there are people who clean those houses, and that was my story. That was our story.
Sure.
My mom, single parent, gave us radical love.
Amazing.
And poured herself into my brother and my upbringing, did all that she could to provide us opportunities. But there was a cap, there was a limitation.
Yes.
And when times got tough, there were these moments where it wasn't easy, it wasn't smooth. Sharing, Montclair stories. Christ Church in Montclair was very supportive of us growing up.
Yeah,
Food
super
pantry.
influential. Yeah,
So I didn't often share this story growing up, and I didn't often share this story in college or after. But I started to embrace the things that were part of my experience.
Some of the real challenges, yeah.
And all that stuff culminated into when I got the opportunity to be a Big Brothers Big Sisters, a real fuel to the fire to keep that going. And that mission.
The connection.
Yeah. That's on Big Brothers. But then in Brown, it's like I never in my wildest dream would have ever thought I would be at the board level. And being at the board level, I didn't think I would have much of a voice.
Sure.
And been there for 2 years now.
Excellent.
We've been able to I've been able to embrace my lived experience and my perspective on things to help guide certain conversations that are really influential. It's
so profound because, and you and I, like anyone who, especially at least from our era, and I think we all connect with our era, as call us, I'm a late Gen Xer. But, it was really special because you had true diversity. It wasn't really forced, right? Like, and diversity is great for all the reasons it's great, but it wasn't an initiative. Yeah. It was real people, real families that actually authentically dwelled together. There was all different kind of people embraced. And like I said, there was no major racial tension. There was jerks. There were emerging young people. There were athletes. There were future leaders. Yeah. So it was really such a unique experience. But again, and obviously I played football with your brother, so he was our starting center for a couple of years. Yeah. And hey, folks, this guy right here took my sister to the prom.
Now it's televised.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I got to let the world know. I'm brave. It's funny, right? Because I'm the younger brother. Of course, you're trying to be protective. And
like, who is this guy, Carlos, knocking at the door on a Friday night?
you were a breath of fresh air, and my sister was hardcore. Yeah. So I'm like, man, this guy's courageous because my sister's, she got some edge with her. So when you came in, I'm like, now, this is what I'm talking about, Jizz. This is the kind of guy you need to bring home. So you're probably the only person I looked upon with some credence and respect because I knew you had a future.
Bless you, man. I didn't have a future that night, I tell you, because I couldn't dance well. Like I remember, I had to deal with Jess. I was like, listen, when it starts to get on the dance floor, I am not going to be that guy. You're going to dance by yourself. And we went there as friends and all that. And she was like, and so she would do her dance stuff, and I would just kind of be the guy holding up the wall on the side. That was that was my job. Hey. And the wall didn't fall. So it worked. Hey,
listen, we're from the two-step generation anyway. Like this is a whole TikTok dancing generation. It's always a few dances in everybody's class, but we respected the real dancers. There was real dancers.
Let them do their thing.
Yeah.
I'll hold the wall.
I'm holding it down. I'm be on the wall. Back in the day, a little drink, chilling out.
Right.
I'll be here when you finish.
Right. Exactly.
No, but that's fantastic. You already mentioned just the impact of the people who really played pivotal roles. Talk about, and this is the world that you live in, right? Yeah. We have, tried and true statements. Takes a village to raise a child, and I think in the work of mentorship, it brings more intention to it. So, who were some of those people, if you could name two or three, that were added support to a young emerging man who's looking to have a future?
I'll name one that aligns with the spirit of this conversation. A person who was Montclair through and through, and was an athlete too, and Yogi Berra, who lived in our town. And I will tell you. Okay. Did y'all hear that?
I just had it said, Yogi Berra lived in our town.
So the spirit of that conversation, I didn't fully understand the depth of it until he turned about 90 years old. So I met him when I was in high school, when we were in high school, and I was starting a business.
High school starting a business.
Right. I know.
My dog. He ain't telling me. He could have been my business manager. Nah, go ahead.
Well, I was trying to do something. All right. So if we're gonna go along on this story, I'm gonna describe the drivers of it. Didn't have a father.
There you go.
Didn't have that male role model. My mom had all the love, all the capacity to do so much, but there was a cap there. And I longed for male mentorship. I longed for it. And so I was introduced by this mentor, not a formal program. He was in our lives for a few years, to baseball, and I just became so into baseball, like a fanatic. And in the 80s and the 90s, the Mets were the team. The Yankees weren't so good.
No, they weren't.
So the Mets won the World Series in '86, and I was an impressionable young man. And so I just like was all in, like radical, right? And I didn't quite appreciate it then. Now I decode that as to I just gravitated towards positive men that I saw on a regular basis. I saw them on TV.
Wow.
So then I started to go to these baseball card shows where they sign autographs. So I was like, for $20, I can meet Darryl Strawberry. For $20, I can meet Gary Carter.
Yeah.
These people I see on TV, and these baseball memorabilia shows were happening in hotels all over the state, all over the country. And so then I started, and money was tight with us. So, so it was the male mentorship that was a driver, but then also money was tight. So every time I'd go, I'd be losing $20. I'd have my fan moment, but I'd be $20 in the hole.
In the hole, no doubt.
And then I realized someone's running this thing, and someone's making money, and they're successful because they keep on going, and it keeps on going. And so I was like, let me see if I can flip it a little bit. And so I was a busboy in a couple of restaurants in Montclair, the Marlboro Inn that no longer lives is there.
Man.
Like
R.I.P.
Throwbacks, right? And so I was saving up my money. I didn't go to a number of shows for a while. And then I was like, let me run a baseball card show, a memorabilia show. I made some money. I turned that into a bigger show and a bigger show. And then I was like, I need a celebrity to be an anchor for me. And so let me see if I can introduce the concept to Yogi Berra. We used to go to the same church, Immaculate Conception in Montclair, and I pulled him aside. And he was nice. He was generous, but it was also like, you're a kid, right?
Yeah.
Like, I was an 8th grader, 9th grader at that time. And he was like, is this real or not? And so there was a little cautiousness, as I'm sure you know. Like, people approach you with a million ideas.
Oh, gosh. Well, Tristan, I get my share free. I can only imagine what it was for Yogi.
Yeah, I know, right? And then after some back and forth, it was a real offer. And I was like, listen, I want to leap into the big leagues in this business. And by the way, I'm a local kid. By the way, my mom struggles. I see this as a path for a new beginning for me and my family. And so he said, I'll take a chance. I'll slash my fees. Of course, I had to pay him.
Of course.
And then at the end of the show, it was really successful. I made thousands of dollars as a teenager. I was like, I see a whole opportunity here.
Sure.
And I walked him back to his car after the show, and he said, kid, I'm in this road for life with you, and I'm on this path with you. Keep in touch. And so he gave me all his personal information.
Oh, wow.
And so that was a start of a critical mentor that I did keep in touch. And I'd be in his like kitchen talking about life. And at one point I stopped going to school. And this is not in Montclair High. It wasn't. I didn't talk about it much. But I stopped going to school. And I thought, okay, if I start working more as a busboy, working more as a waiter, and then kind of explore this business, that's the better path to make more money to help mom and help the situation at home. We were blessed, village, right?
Sure.
We were blessed to have people allow us to stay in their home in Montclair.
Wow.
I graduated from Montclair High because someone let us stay for my senior year in the zip code that gave me access to that public school.
Wow.
That is not normal.
No, it's not.
And I don't take that lightly. That is a necessary thing that was part of what made me have access to opportunities and education and stability and a positive community.
Yep.
What my mom was considering, if we didn't have that, was moving to places that were not safe. And I know this now, working in the work that I do.
Yep.
I know this now. We felt it, and we were blessed. And so I stopped going to school, exploring this business idea, exploring having more time to work. And then I had people who just poured into me and got me back to school.
Wow.
And then I asked
Now
Yogi.
we're talking about at Brown, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big, and obviously not cheap.
No, not cheap. And I was blessed to, so at that point, because I had a gap in my transcript,
Sure.
I asked Yogi to write my recommendation letter to college because he understood why I did that. And he wrote my recommendation letter, which was, I was surprised he did.
Yep.
And then full circle, and 90 years old, so a few years before he passed, he tells me, and I didn't know this, that he had dropped out in 8th grade, and that him doing that for me was a way for him to pay it forward, to kind of live out a cycle of giving, because he was storied, he was elevated, he was beautiful and iconic, right?
Yeah.
But he had a regret. He wished he would have kept down the school path, and he didn't. And then all of a sudden, this young man immigrant, right? Family, my mom, he had an immigrant Italian background.
Sure.
Was considering, do I do this? Do I do that? And he was offering me encouragement that he wished someone encouraged him to do.
Man, thanks for sharing that, because, you know, there's a few things that can easily be disconnected, especially with our emerging generation, right? We have far more comforts and conveniences, technology.
Right.
We have parents who want to do their best to keep their kids safe. And I can only imagine, even in the mentoring space, we're trying to figure out how to give our kids healthy opportunity to expose themselves to healthy risk, right? Decision making. I'm not talking about unhealthy environments.
Right.
What I hear in both of these stories is there were boundaries, there were caps, there were limitations that were real, right? Like, our money's not even like real. Most kids aren't using cash anymore, right? Right. Everything's becoming invisible.
Disconnected,
So people are really disconnected, but I also heard duty. Like, you know, like for you and Yogi, like you felt you had a sense of duty. What are you guys experiencing as, you know, as a lead in the space of mentorship? What are younger kids beginning to not just need, but what are also they looking for? And how do you kind of like, you know, everybody's mitigating. We're talking about the entitlement of the generation and some of the negative aspects.
Right.
What do you feel the needs, and even in your service with the mentors, how is there a gap there, and what you feel like we know they need versus maybe what they feel like they need?
Historically, there have always been challenges, especially in the work that I do and the places that we do it, structural issues that our young people inherit. Not part of their doing, not part of their control. It lands upon them sometimes.
Some of this is just environment.
Exactly.
Where they grew up at.
Right. Exactly.
Possibly gang culture, unhealthy, missing parents.
Walking from school to home may have so many negative variables that it can hijack a person's life and tempt them away from their better selves. And so, coming out of the pandemic, though, new things have emerged or been amplified in a bad way. The mental health challenges that our kids have experienced and exposed to, and it's not, and something that I thought was maybe temporary, it has lasted and it's been widespread. And our young people are kind of too quick to be able to spiral down a negative path, and social and all these things don't help. They can, but often don't. What we're seeing is the need for our kids to have a trusted person in their corner, who allow them what psychologists call buffering.
There you go.
So this is like normal state, and everyone faces trauma. You go down. But do you have an ecosystem of people around you, of things around you that love on you, that care for you, that make you kind of bounce back? That's the resiliency. That's the grit that allows you kind of like bounce back. We all have our setbacks. But unfortunately, some of our kids may have people that aren't around them to offer them that love and care. And so we've seen this like spiral. And if you don't have that the ecosystem of love and support and care, you can easily spiral downwards. And so we're seeing that more and more and fairly consistently. And so that's been the troubling thing of it. So we've partnered with a lot of our healthcare institutes. Jersey City Medical Center has been a blessing to us. Robert Wood Johnson, Barnabas Health. A lot of the healthcare providers that do this full on, they're therapists. Our kids are needing it more. They need those outlets. But what's core is that young person that is in our care at Big Brothers Big Sisters, they may not be so obvious that they need it. It may be the subtle cues, and that's what that one-to-one mentor. I love the power of one-to-one mentorship because it's so individualized.
It's good.
Like if you're with that person over time, you get to notice the little things. You know, David, you're smiling. That's great. You're smiling. That's great. But I know you last week, you were really smiling. So did you dial it down? Is something going on at home? Is there something different? You pick up on the idiosyncrasies of that child. And so you don't let that young person slip through the cracks and kind of go spiraling way down. So the power of a caring adult that's been consistent in the life of that child can help us as professionals say, okay, something else is going. They may not be articulating everything, they may not be verbalizing everything, but they're signaling to you because you know them. No one else knows them the way you do. And so then we start galvanizing the village, trying to get more formal supports, and we're seeing that more and more. That's
pretty powerful, man. That's pretty powerful. Now, when it comes to yourself, like obviously you've lived a life of mission on a mission. So I'm pretty sure that we haven't gotten to the stage of your own family. right? Like, and you have the work that you do has created family because there's so much meaning and purpose to it. So how has that been, knowing that you've created so many powerful dynamics? You've been a part of the evolution of so many people's development, and at this stage in your journey as a leader, but you haven't crossed the road of father yet yourself. Right. Is that something that you've thought, wrestled with? Like, hey, I got to figure this out. And what do you get through internally? Because you're so worthy. Yeah. And I mean, like, you talk about answers and solutions. Right. What's that journey been for you? It's
been one of the toughest things I've had to like grapple with on a personal level. I remember in middle school we had a class, a history class, Mr. McCarthy. And
no, you was Glenfield or he?
Glenfield. Okay. You were uptown. You were uptown. I was downtown. Couldn't hang with the uptown kids.
Facts. He was on the other side. That was the only taste I got of 07043. Trust me.
That's funny. So I was with him for 3 years. They had a cycle, and so he really got to know me. And he at those critical years, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade,
they're so critical.
I was going through some stuff at home without the father, financial issues, and wasn't always doing the right thing in school, and a lot of temptations, a lot of other things. But there was a project that he had us do, and it was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? That kind of thing. I forget the exact thing, but I said I want to be a baseball player because that's who I see, that's who I idolize, and that was iconic to me. The Mets were winning those years, right? This was great. And I also told him, I also in the project said I want to be a father, and I remember Mr. McCarthy pulled me aside and he was like, "Are things okay at home?" Talk about a teacher going well beyond their task. Wow. Are things okay at home? And I didn't break down and cry, but I felt an emotion I hadn't really kind of captured in my life. I had been burying that. And I knew at that point, I was like, I just want to be a father. This is like my thing. And I embraced it. I doubled down to him, and then kind of thought, okay, this is the journey that I have in my head for myself. Yeah. And life has not dealt me those cards. Yeah. In a way that has been shattering to that image. Yeah. And then I realized it's not easy, but I had to detach from my image of what my life was going to be like. And I had it core from middle school. Like, I solidified that middle school year and had always said, I'm going to be a father. I want to have a kid and I want to have children. And so what makes it tough is that I have had to let that image go for when I thought it was going to be. Sure. I can't define what the future will hold, but along the way, my work and my life's lessons have been the redefinition of what family is. Yes. And the redefinition of who can play that role and who can and be that and should be that. And that's been the work, and also the opportunity for me personally to feel like I'm part of families, regardless of the blood.
Want to take your sports betting game to the next level? Look no further than our sponsor, betting.us. With a user-friendly interface, unbeatable odds, and up-to-the-minute insights, betting.us is the ultimate sports betting destination. Visit betting.us today and start winning big. I'm just glad I asked that question because, those are the hard questions where we have these disappointments along life's journey that we're not, maybe just not in position to talk about, right? Or maybe those are private conversations. But when I think, I'm like, man, you're a father of hope. You talk about Essex County, Union County, and Hudson County. This is where, the mass population in North Jersey and where many challenges are, battlegrounds for family. And if there's not people to stand in the gap, if there's not support systems and mechanisms. So I'm like, man, this guy's exemplary. I remember him on prom night. So, obviously I think we've all watched each other's journey from, for the people you care about from a distance. Right. And it's like when I see it, I'm like, man, it's so not surprising. But I just wanted to salute you. And obviously there's hope. I mean, hey, man, if you tune in on Catch 'Em On podcast, my dog,
That's funny. Man. That's funny. But I appreciate you raising that because that's a topic that I think people don't often embrace. And that is part of, I think, how my journey has unfolded. And, and I'm coming to terms with it. It's not like a complete story yet. And life isn't fully written, but
no, man.
I appreciate you saying that.
No, I'm going to tell you what, like I've kind of, my company, Truth, Transparency, Transformation, DT3, 3Ts. So like, man, there's been some deflating experiences, right? And sometimes I think more because mental health is a focal point. And I've always had at least avenues and relationships where I can just bare my heart, whether it's with my wife or I have a couple great friends where I'm just like, man, I'm broken. I'm broken about this disappointment, right? Like, and I think it's, confession is healing for the soul. Right. And of course, you got to cultivate safe places. I'm not in the space of just sharing just to share. I know we got a digital generation. Everybody on, doing vlogs and cry. I'm like, I'm not crying to the world. These people don't know me. But at the same time, these are real experiences. And I think the opportunity is really, really, really valuable. So let me get back on track with some of your journey. Like what have been some of the, experiences? I know you were at Goldman, how have some of your past experiences, whether it's Brown, Goldman, and what do you feel like has been like your true value propositions in your role as CEO of Big Brothers?
First of all, it's such a meandering, non-linear path to get to where I am.
Got you.
And so I'm going to predict there's going to be a non-linear path from here to the future. Because I just don't know. I can't call what the next twist and turn in life will offer. But my openness to bringing myself to the conversation as best as I can, whoever I think I am, right? And that evolves constantly. And being authentic about that, and then being open to others mentoring and opening up that door. Goldman was a thing that I didn't know existed at all. Now as an adult, like I realize, oh my God, that's one of the powerhouse institutions in the world, right? And
I feel the same way. Like literally, when I would hear about this when I was a player, people would throw these big banks out.
No idea.
And I'm like, why? Why do you keep talking about gold?
I mean, I'll tell you, the mentor that opened up that door for me was at Brown. He said, I see something in you. And he had been full circle. I received a scholarship for a summer program in high school that he was a funder of. I didn't know him. Nice. But it became clear after a while. He went to Brown. He was on the board of Brown. And so at Brown, I ran for student government, became visible to him. We became friends. Nice. And he said, have you ever thought about banking? And I said, no. And I thought he meant to be a teller at a bank. Like he thought he sees something in me. Right here. And he means like being a teller. That's all my experience was in banking. And he said, have you heard of Goldman Sachs? I was like, never heard of it. And I thought his last name was Goldman or something like that. And he was like, well, I work there. I'm a partner there. I will open up a door, but it's on you to walk through that door. And I'll help you with the resume. And so he opened up that opportunity. I had never heard of Goldman before. And frankly, I talked to my family in Ecuador. They're like, what's that? So there was no context for like encouragement of that. And so the openness of a mentor unleashed that possibility.
This is so good.
But it comes from various levels because the openness of a mentor changed my life to do the work that I do today. So, and that was a young person from Newark that changed my life to kind of encourage me down this path. So it comes from all sorts of avenues.
Yeah, I hope everybody hears that. I mean, like we have to be open to the voices of people that, especially the people that obviously mean as well, right? You talk about a mentor. That's right. They're properly positioned to give you insight, wisdom, counsel, guidance, and ultimately sometimes create opportunities, which obviously it did for you. One of the greatest, I tell people at the end of the day, the treasure is in the people. Right, the treasure is in the earthen vessel, and so, I've never been about pursuing treasure. I've been about pursuing people. If I can nurture the relationship at the proper time, it'll be well seated and mature to the extent where if there is a need, an ask, a question, hopefully it'll pay. The harvest will kind of open up. So your life really, your openness. To insight and guidance really created some unique opportunities.
And I think you give what you get, and you get what you give. It's this abundant mindset that it allows you to expand opportunities. I have for my job, the header of some of our agendas is good energy begets good energy. And so if you project it out there, it tends to reciprocate. And so with that Goldman experience, Tom was his name. I was just putting out an openness to want a future, didn't know what that looked like, exploring career opportunities, and then he gave it back to me with an opportunity that landed me a job.
Sure.
And it didn't result in my career, but it resulted in a really important experience for me to have.
Amazing. So what are you most excited about? Obviously, there's a lot of impact, and I know you guys focus a lot on the one-on-one. So I can imagine each scenario is its own. Do you guys create a best practice? Like, you have so many different scenarios. What is the end goal when you guys are looking to pair these mentors with families or young kids, young brothers or young sisters?
The real strength that we have from my local agency. So Big Brothers Big Sisters have been around the country for over a century. So
absolutely.
So it's been tried, tested, and true.
Yep.
Locally, what sets us apart is that we see so many assets within our community. So what does that mean? We have a lot of mentors, bigs, coming from the communities where our children come from.
Nice.
That's not always the case. And so what does that look like? So a majority of our bigs are Black and brown. That isn't a thing that we targeted. It isn't a thing but it certainly stands apart from my colleagues around the country. And so we have such beauty, such strength in Newark, such beauty, such strength in East Orange, in Jersey City, in Elizabeth, and Plainfield. And so we just tap into that backdrop and manifest and allow elders in the community, allow established people in the community who have love to give to be connected within the community. It doesn't always mean that we won't pair a young person from East Orange to Montclair, but we don't look past the strength of our communities.
Powerful.
And that, I tell you, and I've had so many conversations around the country in terms of amplifying best practices. This is a topic that others long to achieve. And we've done this for 15 years. The majority of our mentors have been Black and brown, and we're proud of that. And we do it naturally.
Nice. Yeah. Obviously I got the organic, it's a nice little word. It's organic. It's kind of like Montclair, New Jersey growing up. Like everybody was there.
Right.
I tell people what was so special about it, not to deviate from the holistic conversation, we talk about it's natural. Relationships came naturally, right? Yeah. Like they came in the context of whatever community that you were a part of. If you were in a band, you probably had some relationships across class, across race, that just came natural because there was a shared interest. Yeah. And
I was in the marching band, by the way.
I think I saw you.
I was playing my French horn, trumpet, while you were performing your performance. I was performing mine. Yeah.
Well, trust me, it was nothing. If you didn't hear the band coming down the block on game day, you didn't feel like you were a part of the legacy. Right. Montclair football has generational legacy, man. So this is really good, man. So I can only imagine you really tapped into something special when you were talking about the natural relationships. Mm-hmm. I can imagine at this stage in your life, you're very much a visionary. What do you see moving forward? First for yourself, right? Like, you're a vested leader with a sphere of influence within the state. What do you see for yourself first, and then talk about bigs along the way?
What's interesting and kind of tough to grapple with is that there's a lot of history being made now, which kind of says a little bit of a weird thing about the history. Like, I'm the chairman of my Jersey City Medical Center Hospital Board, right? Mm-hmm. I'm the first Latinx, Latino chair of that board. That institution's been around for over a century. It was there before the Statue of Liberty was in Jersey City. Right. And so to have that long history, to be the first of... And it's an immigrant town, right? Jersey City is received town. Ellis Island, right? All that stuff.
Big town.
And so it's a little bit of a mixed story about the history, but it's also embracing that it's our moment and our time. And there's a lot of beauty in that. And it's not just me, and it's the space that we're able to open up for others. Like, you having this platform is a blessing. It's an opportunity to lift up those what people call historically underrepresented groups stories, right? Things that had been repressed. And so I think they're coming out of this pandemic. There's so much that went on in the world, so many issues, so many historic moments of strife and challenge, pent up emotion. Mm-hmm. What's unleashing after this? What's kind of like exploding into the world now? I hope is a new narrative. I hope it's a new opportunity for for voices who had not been at the table to be there. I just happen to, I think, be able to be a good connector, a good communicator when it comes to some stories that may not be often told.
Sure.
And I'm going to embrace more of that, but also just kind of take a step back and see what other things emerge too, because this is a unique, I think history will show that this is a very critical part in human history. What we went through, what the world went through, was so disproportionate, so extreme.
Yes.
And what emerges, history will point to certain things to show that those are the critical moments of new light.
That's pretty powerful. I didn't want to forget this because, big difference between boys and girls, right? So although the theme and the outputs, become very similar, what are the biggest differences that you find in your efforts to serve those two groups?
There's so many things, but even within each gender, there's such differences too. So
Sure.
So I think it's just broad. I think what I hold on to is that every child is individual. Every child has their own light, and how they shine it is just their own choosing, their own path, their own uniqueness.
Sure.
And so for me, I've learned to kind of pull back the filters that I try to put into that and just say, like, show me your light and let me guide that way.
It's good.
And we all have that. Like, that's the thing. Like, the way I express myself, my individuality, my superpower strengths, or whatever they're going to say, is so my thing. And to have an ecosystem of people who push and encourage and push and prod that's going to make me better. But if the Goldman guy, right, would have forced me to go down a path that would have been embracing his light,
True.
Might not have been the best suited for me and what I give to this world. I was blessed that he was encouraging, but also able to, like, saying, okay, now I see something different when you go down this path. And frankly, that person, that mentor, is supportive of Big Brothers Big Sisters. So he's followed my journey, and frankly, I'm still part of his. So I think it's a matter of the individuality of each person, regardless of the gender.
Respecting the uniqueness of each and every individual. I'll never forget those early lessons, just talking about that fingerprint. How that's still an amazing reality. Like, you trying to tell me every certain person on the world got a different fingerprint.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably one of the first things you learn when you're young, but it's probably one of the most wondrous realities of billions of individuals, and no one has the same fingerprint.
And I think at the end of the day too, if we all have our own individuality, to know that someone actually sees you.
There you go.
Like, can actually see your individuality. That to me is love. That to me is unconditional love. That to me is support. That's powerful. And if you don't have that, you diminish. If you don't have that, you choose bad things. If you don't have that, then you kind of get tempted by people who give you false love, and we talked about that earlier. What forms a young person, I think, particularly, is what happens at home, what happens at school. Those two things really matter. We need to support those things and love on those things, and constantly rethink those things. School needs to be rethought.
Yes.
Life supports need to be rethought. But then also, to me, there's a gap between the two, and I call that the X factor. It's home life and school life, and then the X factor. The X factor is, in math terms, it's a variable. It's intentionally could be positive or negative.
Sure.
It could be the coach. It could be the pastor. It could be the mentor. It could be positive things. It could be the big brother or big sister. It could also be negative things that show young people love. Often when we talk to people who've been tempted down the gang path,
it's the love.
That's
the community.
Family. That's family. They show me love.
Yeah.
And then it's the wrong kind of love. It's the draw of it takes away your shine. It takes away your abundance.
It does.
And sadly enough, and I don't care to admit how many times I've been to funeral homes for young people robbed of their future. It can go down that path.
It sure can.
And so for me, that X factor, I worked in a school before I was an administrator. I love and support people who love on their homes, and we need to figure out how to better support that.
Sure.
But for me, I've embraced the X factor and try to be more a provider of positive X factors than to neutralize the negative.
That's so powerful, man. Listen, I'm gonna wrap that up right there, because you talk about the X factor. You can feel the unknown, right? You can feel the unknown with positive energy, with vision, with opportunity, with hope. Every single one of us have that opportunity. I just really want to celebrate you again, man, because like I said, your contribution is super duper valuable, as, obviously two people who grew up from the same pedigree. Watching you emerge has been inspirational to me. You know, I tell people, I said, I'm inspired by, I don't think, you know, like obviously playing a game, I got a chance to live a dream, right? At the end of the day, I lived the dream. Right, I couldn't believe it when I got my first check. I was like, "Oh my God!"
And they paid me for this.
Oh my God.
Right.
I got them. I win.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of how it felt.
Yeah.
But and of course you earn it. But at the same time, I was living a dream.
Yeah.
You know, like my transition out of the space is when real life became. It was like I came out the fishbowl.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like living in a false reality. So, and I personally, athletes, we deal with some of the insecurity of our peers having a head start in the real world. Yeah. And so I really celebrate, you know, and I know everybody has to figure it out. Yeah. Even more so when how much more meaningful and valuable it becomes when you have somebody filling that X factor. You know, everybody has to go on that Y axis, but if you have someone that's pouring in guidance, insight, you know, instruction, wisdom, sharing their experience, it enhances and, you know, it kind of minimizes collateral damage. So, and
that's a lifelong conversation, Dave.
Oh, man.
That's the thing that's like the X factor, the mentorship is a lifelong thing. It's not just for youth.
Yes.
It's if you're really open to it, you will attract it, and it will be attractive to you. So you will give and you will receive constantly through life. So you're an athlete. I wrestled in college. So I used to be an athlete. I'm far off that path.
I got respect for my wrestlers. I got respect.
But when we had those double like workout sessions, and the next day you were sore, what was happening there? You were tearing up your muscle, and that hurt, right? That was painful. But what was happening is then that pain, that soreness was recuperation to be stronger for the next day.
There it is.
And so the mentorship, I think, is the same thing. It's to have people around you that see you, who encourage you and may push you down the path of uncomfortability, but with love and support will make you stronger for the next thing that will happen, because there will always be something that happens.
It's powerful. Los, man, we'll go all day. We'll get a round two and just let us know where we can find you, Big Brothers organization. Give us a quick drop on the way out.
Yeah, for sure. So online, bigbrothersbigsisters.org is the national website. You type in your zip code, and a local chapter anywhere in the country can capture your interest. That's the blessing of this platform. Of course, we want you all in New Jersey. So any Jersey people, love to have more mentors there, but it's a national platform for sure.
Amazing. It's a much needed one. Man, thank you for your journey. Thank you for your transparency, man. And like I said, continue to be a father of hope. And I'm still rooting for little Lejnieks. You know what I mean? Still rooting for little Lejnieks, man. You know, he's strong. He got Ecuadorian blood.
I appreciate you, man.
So you're a soldier. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Catch the Moment podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, post, repost, do all that good stuff. We're building a platform that's going to help you get to your next moment. We'll check in soon.